You know what time it is. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to my channel here, and welcome to Super Bowl week. Well, actually, Super Bowl week started last week. It's been the media's thing started this week. But yeah, it's been a long week and a half so far. Right now, I'm recording this on Wednesday night on February 7th. Super Bowl is this coming Sunday. And I wanted to get this video out. Probably will post this on Thursday morning. I may post it Wednesday night. We'll see. But let's see if I need to edit it or all. I've been going. I haven't been going back and forth on my pick for this game. The too long didn't read version is I'm picking the Chiefs to win this game. It wouldn't be any fun for me as a Chiefs fan to pick the 49ers to win. I mean, I'm not getting paid to do this. This is not professional analysis here. Even though I try to do some professional analysis, and I have done some research on this game because there's a lot of numbers that suggest that the 49ers definitely deserve to be the favorite in this game. And when you look at the way the Chiefs season has gone, some people have said that they've been a bad football team this year. They've not been a bad football team this year. They've been a very good football team. It's just that we use a different measuring stick when we compare the Kansas City Chiefs, because we compare them to teams of the past several years that have been historically good on offense. And when it comes to what Patrick Mahomes has done this year, he's thrown more interceptions this year than he has in the past, but 9 of those turnovers have come from dropped passes. And it's just an unbelievable number. I mean, 3 of them directly have been related to Tony. I think, well, no, more than 3. I think 3 have been returned for touchdowns by Tony, or maybe it was 2. I can't remember, but regardless, Kadarius Toney is probably not going to play in the game, so it doesn't matter that much. And there's some noise out there about Kadarius Toney and his Instagram live video that he made, and he said it was for the Giants fans, not Chiefs fans. I don't really know about that. Kadarius Toney is probably going to be on the sideline, and if the Chiefs do get the win, he'll get a Super Bowl ring, and I guarantee you that he will not be a Kansas City Chief next year. So the guy's got $1 million talent. He really does. But he's got a 10-cent head, and I'm not going to get into this. Is not Kadarius Toney video. I mean, the guy he's not a good football player. Well, no, I take that back. He's a good football player. He just doesn't have the mind to be an excellent football player. And anyway, maybe I'll talk more about that at another time. But I don't want to spend too much more time talking about Kadarius Toney. So I wanted to look at a couple things here. Let me switch over here to. Make this a little bigger so it's easier to see. Okay, so ESPN released all of their picks, and so of the 64 experts that weighed in, 49 picked the Chiefs to win, 15 picked the 49ers to win. So that's a big number, especially with the 49ers being a 2.5-point favorite, and that line I think moved down to a point at some time, which is almost a pick 'em, but it's back up to 2.5. I don't think it's ever hit 3, but I wouldn't be surprised if by Saturday it was at 3. If it was at 3 points, Vegas trying to manipulate the number there. ESPN bet they've got San Francisco by 1.5 right now, and the over/unders at 47.5. So, when I look at this game, the reason San Francisco they're getting a little bit of a kiss here because of the whole body of work from the season. So this will be the 49ers. Let's say they played 17 regular season games. This will be their 20th game. This will be the Chiefs' 21st game because the Chiefs had to play in the wild card round. The 49ers have been favored in every single game this year. Now, they obviously haven't won them all. They went 12-5, which that's a respectable. That's only in the regular season, but that's only one more win than the Chiefs had. The Chiefs were 11-6, and that was Andy Reid's worst record under Patrick Mahomes. And we always thought that his worst record under Mahomes, when they would maybe have a down season, might be 9-8 or 10-7, but it was 11-6, and honestly, it could have been a lot better than that. I mean, there were definitely games that you can point to that were the Chiefs' record. The Chiefs could have had 13 wins easily, or 14 wins. They could have 3 more wins easily. Kadarius Toney cost them 3 games, literally. And it's again, we're back to talking about Kadarius Toney. But I am a little surprised at the quote unquote experts' opinions here, and I think maybe it bit them from last year when most of them were picking the Eagles. When all of the, again, do you pick against? The adage is that do you pick against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in the playoffs? I mean, Mahomes is 14-3 in his career in the playoffs. Of those 3 losses, they've come to 2 quarterbacks. Tom Brady, Hall of Famer, greatest of all time, the GOAT. And then Joe Burrow, who Heisman Trophy winner, 1 of 1 in the draft, and a consensus top 3, top 4 NFL quarterback, So it's not like he's losing to Jake Delhomme, Trenton Dilfer type quarterbacks. And now he's beaten quarterbacks like that, but he's also beaten the best. He's beaten Josh Allen in the playoffs 3 times. And Josh Allen is I think Josh Allen gets a little more hype than he deserves sometimes, but he's still very, very good and still a consensus top 5 quarterback in the NFL. So the question for the Chiefs now are going to be, what will they do against Brock Purdy? And we're going to get to that as I start breaking some of this down here a little bit. But I do kind of want to go over some of these predictions here. And the Power Football Index, which is interesting. They've got it almost at 3-2 here, almost 60% by an average of 3 points. So they're kind of following the betting numbers here now, but the experts aren't looking at it this way. And this is where I want to get to the difference between some of the numbers and dissecting some numbers, because this is one of the reasons why, when you look at pure analytics, the numbers suggest that the 49ers will win this game because of their EPA, their success rate, and various personnel packages and whatnot. But when you really take a closer look and a deeper dive into these numbers and you break them apart for what they are, there's a lot of these numbers that look like they're favorable to the 49ers that really aren't that favorable, especially when you take full context into account. Now, I don't want to be accused of being a 100% Chiefs homer here and doing that. Now, I am going to be showing reasons why I think the Chiefs can win. So I'm not going to be presenting counterpoints to my arguments here of why the 49ers can win. I'll sprinkle that in anecdotally as I discuss this. The premise of this video is to tell you how the Chiefs can win and probably should win this game, and maybe why we're seeing a 49-15 edge in the experts' picks, when last year it was almost the exact opposite. It was almost like a 3-1 favorite for the Eagles for the expert picks, and we saw what happened. Now, granted, that last year was a great game. But when you really break down that Super Bowl from last year, which the Chiefs won by 3 points, the Chiefs, now Jalen Hurts obviously played his greatest game of his career in that game. But there were definite plays that went against Kansas City. There was a fumble return for a touchdown that was taken off the board, which was fairly controversial. There were multiple catches by Dallas Goedert that, by all accounts, looked incomplete, like the double catches on the sidelines that were counted as catches, and they were not overturned. One of those coming on a 4th down play. So it's things like this that the Chiefs could have won that game by double digits. And I think, and even so, despite some of the calls that went against them, the Chiefs get all the calls, but the calls that went against them last year, the Chiefs were still able to overcome that and win that game. And so for this year, what is it going to be with the 49ers? So, excuse me, a little frog in my throat. Let me coat it with some high fructose corn syrup. I love Pepsi. It's the best. The Chiefs are playing at a rate in the playoffs that they have not played at this year. There has been a lot of discussion of, leading up to the game presented by, NFL pundits like, Rich Eisen and Dan Patrick. Some of these guys, I love watching some of these guys. And even the First Things First crew, which I'm a, loyal follower of that show. And also by Richard Sherman and his podcast. A lot of what people have asked is that can the Chiefs, despite having played, average on offense for the entire season, but historic on defense, can their offense flip the switch in the playoffs? And what we've seen so far is that they have flipped a switch. Now they're not blowing teams out. They're not winning games like the Texans game in the divisional round of the 2019 playoffs, where they got down 24-0 and still led at halftime, and then ended up winning by 3 touchdowns. Excuse me. I mean, that was a blowout in every sense in every sense of the account. And when you look at what the Chiefs have done in these playoffs, yes, they did blow out the Miami Dolphins. That was a beatdown from start to finish. And if the game had even been a little warmer, if the weather had been a little warmer than it was, I think the Chiefs would have won by even more. But the Chiefs are, because their defense just completely annihilated that offense, that's one thing to note here, is that the style of offense that the Miami Dolphins run is a very similar style of offense to what the San Francisco 49ers run. And so the Chiefs' style of defense is a kryptonite to that style. And again, we'll talk more about that later on in this video. But the Kansas City Chiefs, their ability to turn the switch on in the playoffs and to do what they needed to do has been the main reason why they were able to win 3 straight games in the playoffs and get here. We look back on the Christmas Day game against the Raiders, which was a game that the Chiefs' offense was historically bad. They were within 15 seconds of each other. The Raiders scored 14 points on an interception return and a fumble return for a touchdown. It was an absolute disaster of a day, and they looked like they didn't want to play. They looked completely beat down. And the season could have gone one of 2 ways at that point. It could have gone to the left, and it could have been something as simple as they quit on the team, and they would have lost the Cincinnati game, and maybe they lose the 49 or the Charger game. Maybe they sneak in the playoffs at 9-8, and then they lose in the first round to the Bills or whoever. I guess the Bills would have been the 2 seeding regardless. But what happened instead was that they turned introspective, and they realized what they were doing was not working. They had overcomplicated the offense. They were using players that quite frankly weren't getting it done. And it's weird to say that because Patrick Mahomes last season won an MVP, set an NFL record for yards from scrimmage. And he has largely the same cast from last year as he has this year. The only difference is that Juju Smith-Schuster is no longer on the team, but Rashee Rice is. When you look at their numbers were almost identical from what Schuster had in 22 versus what Rice has in 23. It's similar in almost all the ways. The difference in the Chiefs' offense this year, what they don't have, is they don't have Marquez Valdes-Scantling picking up 700 yards of receiving yards this year. He only went for like 270 with a lot of drops. They didn't have his production this season. They also didn't have the production of Kadarius Toney in his limited amount he played with the Chiefs last year. They didn't get that from him this year. Mecole Hardman, even before his injury last year, even after the trade coming back from the Jets, they didn't get the production from him this year. Jerick McKinnon was injured for large portions of the season this year. Last year, McKinnon had he had over 600 yards receiving as a running back and had 9 touchdowns receiving and 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 11 touchdowns last year. This year he's got 3, I believe. All of those go into the account. And everybody else had very similar. Obviously, Travis Kelce's production was dialed back a little bit. Now, he only played in 15 of the 17 games. So, he just missed 1,000 yards. And you're going to expect, as players age, especially Kelce at 34 years old, his production's going to, it's going to turn down a little bit. We all expect that. But it was the secondary players who disappointed the Chiefs this year, and that's why, and since they didn't perform, and Mahomes kind of lost a little bit of trust in those receivers, and didn't have the same kind of production out of the backfield catching passes. Pacheco has been a really good running back, don't get me wrong, and he's gotten a lot better at catching the passes out of the backfield. It was almost non-existent, at the start of his rookie season last year. But he's still not great at it, and he's not the best in pass protection. Jerick McKinnon is like a personal bodyguard, and especially for a guy his size, he's not a big guy. I remember back in the Jaguars game where Mahomes got hurt last year in the playoffs. McKinnon basically sacrificed his stats in the game and became Mahomes' almost his personal bodyguard back there, as almost like a sixth blocker. He's like, you know what? We're gonna have to win with one less guy running routes. I'm gonna stay back here and I'm just gonna block because we need the help. And he gave up a lot. Now he still ran out and did some routes, and he still got the ball occasionally here and there, but he gave up a lot of what he did for the team, which I tip my hat to Jerick McKinnon. Especially, he could have scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl last year to put the Chiefs up by 7. With, what was it, like a minute to go, but he chose not to so they could run the clock out. So he's a team first guy, and him being hurt has been a tremendous loss for the Chiefs. And McKinnon, there's been talk about McKinnon coming back for the Super Bowl. He was activated from IR, but I don't believe he's practiced at all. So it'll be interesting to see if he practices tomorrow or Friday. My guess is that he does not play in this game. But the Chiefs have gotten here without him, and they've figured out how to win without him. And again, Pacheco and Edwards-Helaire have both stepped up in ways that have, they've picked up the slack where McKinnon was getting production last year. So that'll be an important that's an important distinction from last year to this year for the Chiefs is, the difference in MVS, Hardman, McKinnon. All their numbers were significantly worse this year, either due to just not playing as well or due to McKinnon's sake, due to injury. So now once the Chiefs have kind of simplified that offense, though, after that Raiders game, we saw that they've been very, very good. And then the Bengals game, they couldn't punch the ball in the end zone, but if they had, they could have won that game by 30 points. It was still a fairly comfortable game. It was a little close. The Chiefs had to run the clock out there towards the end of the game, but still, I never felt the Chiefs were in position to lose that game because they dominated. They were able to move the ball up and down the field on the Bengals all day, and when we take into account the final game of the season, and this is where an analytics and professional analysis where it really fails to capture any type of data. And that's momentum. That's karma. The mood. Whatever you want to call it. The Chiefs went out, and when they beat the Chargers 13-12 in the final week of the season, with most of the starters not playing. Now, some of them have to play because you can't just not play everybody. But your main players didn't play. They went out there and won a very, very, very tough game. It was a very physical game. And, of course, it ended with Chris Jones getting a sack. Well, not at the end of the game, but I think it was in the fourth quarter. He finally got a sack to get his $1 million pay bonus. The joy that erupted on that team, that everyone was so happy for Chris Jones getting this sack, it felt different. And the Chiefs getting that victory, it was almost a catharsis of, hey, our backups and our regular players that we're asking to step up and be frontline players in this game, they went out there and played their butts off and got a win against a team that, again, the Chargers were floundering a little bit, but they put up a good fight as well. And they went out and they traded blows. They stood toe-to-toe with each of them toe-to-toe in the ring, and the Chiefs had a few more punches than the Chargers did in that game. And it changed the entire narrative and the entire feel for what the Chiefs did. And no data analysis is going to be able to account for that. Pro Football Focus, they can't break that down. All they can do is look at the numbers, and they can say, well, the Chiefs' EPA per play was this, their success rate was this in that game, and they didn't have an offensive touchdown, and they only kicked a couple field goals, they had a defensive score, and blah, blah, blah. Guys, but you can't account for things that the numbers don't, that they don't know. And this is where I go back to some part of my rant on Dan Campbell and the Lions in the championship game against the 49ers. Sometimes if the numbers will tell you, pure data and analytics a lot of times tell you to go almost always go for it on fourth down. But sometimes you just have to take the context around you of what's happening. And sometimes you have to use your gut more than you have to use the data. And the guys that are able to discern the difference between the two and be able to be successful at using their gut and using the data, those are the best coaches. Those are the best coaches in the NFL. And are those guys lucky? Are they always going to get it right? No, they're not always going to get it right. Are they lucky? No, not necessarily. Luck is basically the combination of preparation and opportunity. It's the intersection of those two things. That's actually what luck is. You don't just luck into something. It's you prepare for it, and then you're able to anticipate it. So the funny thing is I had that I went to lunch yesterday with a coworker, and that was in my fortune cookie at the Chinese restaurant we ate at. And the funny thing is that that's a quote from a Roman general, Seneca, back from the 4th century A.D. And I had that quote on my Facebook page for a long time. I think it's still out there somewhere, but I don't know if quotes still show up on your profile page like they used to. So pardon me. Well, I'm going to refer to some of my notes here because I do have quite a few as we talk about this game. So let's talk about Brock Purdy here a little bit. So Brock Purdy obviously was a finalist. Have they actually, now that I think about this, have they announced the MVP yet? I mean, did I miss it? Here, let's go to teams. We know that February. Oh, it's tomorrow night. Okay. I thought maybe I had missed it. Okay, never mind. So we think that Lamar Jackson is going to win the award. Obviously, Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey, both 49ers, are finalists, but I think the smart money is on Lamar Jackson to win this. I think Brock Purdy will probably finish. He'll probably finish second, I would imagine. I wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he seemed to be the odds-on favorite. I think about before the Ravens thrashed him in Week 15. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was number two. Now Brock Purdy has had a fantastic season, and the numbers have played out. He led the league in quarterback rating. He led the league in yards per attempt. And even surprisingly enough, he was number one in the league when facing pressure, throwing touchdowns while facing pressure. So he played against the blitz very, very well. And so all those things kind of come into account, come together and converge, and you're like, well, maybe that doesn't bode very well for the Kansas City Chiefs here, especially with Charles Omenihu being lost to an ACL injury. But if one thing the Chiefs have is they have some depth on the defensive line. And Charles Omenihu didn't play until Week 7 because of a suspension. And so in the first 6 weeks, the Chiefs were 5-1 without him. And Mike Dana played very, very well in those first 6 games. And he didn't have as many snaps after Omenihu came in. So his numbers, when you look at Mike Dana's numbers, his numbers they don't jump off the page at you. But when you look at the numbers of the first 6 weeks, he played very, very well. And they've got some scrappy guys behind them. They've got Herring and Mike Pennell, who and Tershawn Wharton. None of those guys are going to scare you, but their bodies, they're professional football players who know how to play. And of course they have Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who's the rookie defensive end from K-State, also from my hometown here in Lee Summit. Went to my high school, just a few years after me. He was a senior when my son was a freshman there. So Felix is probably going to play a significant portion of snaps in this game. The thing that the Chiefs lose with Omenihu being out is a defensive end who sets the edge, and that's one of the things that they lost when Frank Clark, got to kind of the end of his playing days. And Clark was kind of he was a really work hard type of guy who would, he would get sacks, but he wasn't a guy who would beat a offensive lineman with one move and then get a sack. He was a guy that he'd clean up, he'd get a sack after the quarterback was in the pocket for 5 or 6 seconds. But one thing that Frank Clark did, and Omenihu did the same thing, is that they were really good at setting the edge on running plays and forcing those runs back to the interior. So that's one thing that Felix is going to have to do if he's going to get time and he's going to get plays. He's going to have to do that in this game as well, is to be able to know that, hey, don't lose your contain, don't lose your edge there. Be able to set that edge, force that run to go back inside, let the linebackers do their job. To end also where there's just more players from offensive and defensive linemen. There's just less running lanes in the middle of the field. As opposed to the perimeter. And we'll talk about perimeter runs here in a little bit, mostly from the Chiefs side, though. But Brock Purdy has made 27 starts in the NFL. And of his 27 starts, 21 of them have come against teams that have not been top 10 defenses when it comes to EPA or EPA per play and success rate allowed. So when you look at EPA and you look at success rate, he's faced 6 top 10 defenses in his career. The first one was against the the Commanders last year in 2022. He only had a 37% success rate in that game. Now the 49ers won that game. I think they won, it was 37-20 or 38-20. They still won by 3 scores. But Brock Purdy did not play very well in that game, and he only had a .17 EPA per play in that game. And of course, then in the 2 playoff games, where I still maintain that while he played great against the Seahawks, and it was his only 300-yard passing game last year, Purdy's getting a lot of credit for the Dallas game last year as well in the playoffs, but he was not good in that Dallas game. And it took some he took some unbelievably risky chances and plays. And, of course, just that unbelievable catch by George Kittle to save that one drive. He was even worse from EPA from that Washington game to the Dallas game. But San Francisco's defense was able to they were able to stop Dak Prescott. It was all that game was 100% the result of San Francisco's defense stopping Dak Prescott. It had nothing to do with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy played a very poor game and only had and it was at 47% success rate. And then of course the Eagles game, he only had 5 dropbacks in that game before he got hurt. So it's hard to and his success rate was only at 40%. It's very tough to judge that game. But when you look at games this season, again, he had 3 games against top 10 defenses this season, of the including the playoffs. So the 49ers have played a bunch of teams that don't have great defenses. But the 3 that they have played, they were 1-2 in those games. Actually, here, let's actually take a look, because I want to make sure I'm not misspeaking here. Okay, yeah, against Pittsburgh. So they did beat Pittsburgh, and they beat them pretty handily, 30-7. That was in the first game of the season. Now, in that game, again, it was Brock Purdy, .265 EPA per play, 47% success rate. It was the running game and the defense that won that game. And then his 2 losses this year that were the highly publicized losses was the game against Cleveland and the game against Baltimore. Both of those games he was negative on EPA, and his success rate was 33% and 38%, respectively. So what does this tell you about what Brock Purdy does when he faces tough defenses? Now, it tells you that he doesn't play as well, and that he is dependent upon a system to succeed in, which again attacks teams that don't have very good players playing especially on the back 7. Brock Purdy loves to hold the ball. He loves to wait an extra second or two and throw long passes, try to hit big plays. And, he leads the league in air yards per pass, but he also leads the league in 20-yard pass plays as well. Not all of them are 20-yard air attempts. Sometimes they're screen passes to McCaffrey, who runs for 70 yards. And the one thing to take into account here is that his overall numbers, in the sample size of those 6 games where he's faced top 10 defenses, he's at 173 dropbacks. His EPA per play is negative 0.7 or negative 0.07, 41% success rate. And none of those defenses, you could argue the Ravens defense, similar to the Chiefs, we're going to see more of that. So all the people who think that Brock Purdy, and they're using all the positive numbers for him to succeed in this game against the Chiefs, whereas the Chiefs defense that he's going to face is going to be very similar to the Browns and the Ravens defense that he faced this year, where he struggled mightily in both of those games. Now, another aspect to look at here when it comes to Brock Purdy, we talked about him against pressure. And Brock Purdy I think he was number 1 in the league, or number 3 in the league. He was definitely towards the top when it comes to facing pressure and being able to get a pass off. And I think he was number 1 in the league at touchdown passes while under pressure. And he was like number 2 in the league against the blitz. So all of the Twitterverse and everything, everybody says, well, the Chiefs are going to try to blitz him. Steve Spagnuolo is going to employ some blitzes, but it's not going to matter because Brock Purdy just eats blitzes alive, and he's going to throw for 4 touchdown passes. Okay, well, it's not as simple as that, because when you look at the defenses that were employed against Brock Purdy in this regard, again, we have to go back to none of these defenses outside of I'm talking about this year, outside of the Browns and the Ravens and the Steelers, none of the other defense they faced were significant in any way. They were all actually poor, average to poor defenses that they've played. When you look at the Packers game this year that they played in the divisional round, which the Packers should have won that game. the 49ers were incredibly lucky to come away with the win there. When the Packers blitzed, they typically had two different blitz packages, and they didn't vary things up at all. Now, it confused Brock Purdy at first, and they were able to get home, and they were able to be successful in their blitz schemes in the first half. But a lot of that is they were just able to rattle him and get him to throw off platform, and he wasn't successful in the first half. In the second half, they were able to start defending against that. They would, because the 49ers like to play with in 22 personnel more than anybody else in the league. So they were able to have an extra blocker in there and protect against that blitz. And the Packers weren't varying it up. They would just send five guys. They would just send an extra guy. They wouldn't stunt. They wouldn't try anything exotic. And eventually the 49ers were able to crack the code, and Brock Purdy was successful at leading a comeback there in the second half. Against the Chiefs, or against the Ravens, I'm sorry, the Ravens are very similar to the Chiefs in that they employ a lot of different looks, a lot of different variations, a lot of different styles in terms of how they blitz and where they blitz from and who's blitzing and what level are they coming from. Are they disguising a blitz here? Or are they dropping an end over in coverage? And while they're sending two linebackers from the same side and confusing the tackles. Let's make no mistake, the offensive line of the 49ers is, just because they have a potential pro or a Hall of Famer at left tackle in Trent Williams, he elevates the line to what I would call just average. Without Trent Williams, it is one of the worst. It's one of the worst offensive lines in football, and they've been able to scheme around it because they just don't play very good defenses throughout the year. Especially on the right side, the 49ers are incredibly vulnerable. Their pressure rate on the 49ers, they were 27th in the league in allowing pressures, that when I say 27th, I'm talking about they allow, there's only, 5 teams that allow more quarterback pressures than the 49ers. But their sack rate was 9th. So what that means is that Purdy was able to avoid taking sacks, even though he faced pressure a ton, which is why his numbers were so good against pressure, because he wasn't taking as many sacks as he could have. Now, again, the thing is that he's not playing defenses throughout most of the season who were able to actually finish the job. The Chiefs are second in the league in sacks, but they're number 1 in the league in sack rate at almost 9%. That is a huge number. The Chiefs were 11th in pressure rate, their defense, but they're number 1 in sack rate. So that tells you that they get the most bang for their buck. Is that when they pressure the quarterback, they more often than not are bringing that quarterback down. Now they're able to do this because they can leave their corners on an island, because with Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed, and then of course Jalen Watson, and then Williams, they're able to do, a lot of times go one-on-one on the outside, or maybe and then with Justin Reed and Edwards in the middle of the field. The Chiefs love playing dime. They love putting teams in position where they have 6 defensive backs in the field, because the Chiefs are the most successful when employing their defense when they've got 6 DBs out there. That is when they're at their best. Now, when we look at what will happen in this game from a pressure rate, now losing to Minihue is a big deal. Minihue he had 7.5 sacks in just 10 games that he played in. So that's he's going to be a miss. I'm not going to minimize it and say that the Chiefs are just going to next man up, even though it is next man up. But like I said earlier, I think Mike Dana is going to be able to come in and play just fine, because we saw him play just fine, especially against really good offensive lines earlier in the season, and he was able to get home on quite a few sacks. But before Minihue was activated from his suspension. So getting back to Brock Purdy, the Chiefs on defense, the Chiefs will blitz about, let's see, I'd say their number. Hold on, I have this written down here. Hang on, let me look. Yeah, the Chiefs are at 28% on their blitzes on the season, 28% of dropbacks, which is right outside the top 10. I believe it's like 11 or 12th in the league, if I remember the stat right when I looked it up. I didn't write that part of it down, but so it's about 28% of the time on a quarterback dropback that they're going to send more than just their base four. Now, of the 25 quarterbacks who faced at least 100 blitzes this year, Purdy was first in EPA in success rate. Again, in both EPA and success rate, he was number one. Like I said, it was because he's facing defenses that aren't as good; they're not as talented. This is when on paper it looks like a strength for strength. Spags is going to be aggressive. We know that. And he's going to have to decide when and where and what level he's going to bring these blitzes from, because the Chiefs are going to blitz. Don't make no mistake about it. They're not going to sit back there in a base defense and just send four. Now, the one thing about the Chiefs when sending four, the Chiefs have still produced the highest sack rate in the NFL at 8.5% when sending four guys or fewer. So what that tells you is that Chris Jones, Mike Dennett, and Charles Omenihu, so Omenihu's going to be out, but then the rest, I mean, this accounts for Herring, this is Nduke Azama, everybody on that defensive line, when sending four or fewer, or maybe they're sending only three defensive linemen and there's a linebacker, regardless, four or fewer rushers, the Chiefs are still getting in at 8.5%, which led the league. Now, why are the Chiefs so successful at their base defense of getting home? Again, it's the secondary. They're able to cover just a second longer, a half second longer, which allows the quarterback to hold that ball just a little longer in his hand and allows for the defender to get home there, because you can only block a defender for so long on the offensive line. On snaps where the Chiefs don't blitz, opposing quarterbacks hold on to the ball for 3 seconds. That's the fourth highest average in the NFL. That is a winning formula for the Chiefs. If Purdy is holding on the ball for 3 seconds consistently, the 49ers are going to get blown out. I'm not even being hyperbole here. I said that word wrong like 3 times, so apologize for that. But if he's consistently holding the ball 3, 4, 5 seconds, that's not more time for him to find an open receiver. That's more time for Chris Jones and Mike Dennett and George Karlaftis to bring him down for a sack. Because the Chiefs' defense is just, they're not going to give it up. They haven't given it up in 19 games this year. Why are they going to give it up to the 49ers in this one? Yes, the 49ers are a fantastic offense. But again, context matters. The defenses of the 49ers have played this year have not been great. And when they face great defenses, this offense struggles. And they struggle because their offensive line is just not good. It all starts up front. And when you're able to put pressure on Brock Purdy, we're able to get him off platform, we're able to actually hit him, he will make him hold the ball for longer. He will take a lot of extra chances that most quarterbacks won't take. So I'm not a big Pro Football Focus guy, but the Chiefs, but they have a stat that's called turnover-worthy plays. Brock Purdy has a turnover-worthy rate. And what was it? Shoot, I totally forgot what it was. I want to say it was like 3.5 to 4% of total dropbacks, which ranked him. I think they rated like 40 quarterbacks, and he was like 12th or 13th or something like that. Hang on, let me look it up here. I thought I wrote that one down. Okay, I did write it down. Apologize. This tremendous, production here. Okay, among 39, 39 not 40, 39 quarterbacks with at least 200 dropbacks, Purdy's turnover worthy play rate is 3.5%, which ranks 14th. So he'll take chances. He's going to put the ball in harm's way. We've seen that constantly in the playoffs. The pass that he gets all the credit for, which he should get no credit for, was the pass that bounced off the Lions player, off the face mask, and Brandon Ayuk just caught the rebound for like 52-yard reception. That should have been a turnover. And the 49ers, Brock Purdy has been incredibly lucky with these type of plays. He has. There was another stat I saw on Twitter, and I didn't write this one down. I apologize. That he had 14 passes that should have been intercepted this year. So that's going to be the biggest thing. Now, the 49ers are talented on offense. And even the Chiefs' fantastic defense, I think the 49ers are still going to be able to employ their offense because Kyle Shanahan's no dummy. He's going to be able to get the ball, into situations where his playmakers can still get yards. The question is that are the Chiefs – what are the Chiefs going to do on the back end? I think the Chiefs' game plan is going to be very similar to what they had against the Buffalo Bills. I don't think it's going to be a game plan like they had against the Ravens. I think it's going to be a game plan against the Bills. I think they're going to let the 49ers whittle them as much as they want, and they're going to force Purdy they're going to force him to make the mistakes. Now, Josh Allen didn't really make mistakes in there. The Chiefs' defense just had a few extra plays to be able to come up, and their offense was great and efficiently great in that game against the Bills. Purdy, he's not a conservative player, okay? He's going to take his chances. He's going to put the ball in harm's way. And the thing is, though, the defense for the Chiefs, they have to make him pay for putting the ball in play or putting the ball in harm's way when he does that, when he throws those medicine balls down the field. The Chiefs, they're not going to shut down the 49ers on offense. They're going to force some 3-and-outs, they maybe, but they're not. It's not going to be It's not going to be drive after drive of 3-and-out here and there. It's almost impossible to do. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's offense is too good. The 49ers personnel is just too good. They're just not going to do it. They're going to give up some points, as great as this Chiefs defense is. But it's about forcing those negative plays. The Chiefs can afford to give up some yardage and some plays, but it's about forcing the negative plays and capitalizing on turnover opportunities. They can't afford. There was a play in the game last week where Nick Bolton dropped an interception or let one go right through his hands. There was another one where it looked like where Lamar Jackson was going to be sacked. I can't remember. I don't know if it was Tranquil or maybe it was another linebacker. Maybe it was a defensive lineman. I can't remember. But it was the play where we thought it was a fumble, but it was an incomplete pass. But it should have been a pick. It should have been intercepted. It was thrown right to the defender. It should have been intentional grounding. They have to catch those passes, the Chiefs defense. If they put Brock Purdy in a similar situation, the Chiefs have to capitalize on defense and make those catches and force him in it. And if Brock Purdy turns the ball over, if Brock Purdy turns the ball over 2 or 3 times, the Chiefs win this game easily. Not going to be close. When we talked about, when I talked earlier about the Chiefs, being able to wanting to go into playing the dime packages, the 6 defensive backs on the field. The Chiefs were 4th in the league in DVOA against deep passes this year. And that's what Brock Purdy loves to do. So, again, Purdy is going to be throwing into the strength of the Chiefs defense. So, what's going to break first? Is it going to be the Chiefs defense or the 49ers offense? Well, we've seen the 49ers offense be unsuccessful this year. We've not seen the Chiefs defense be unsuccessful. So take that for what it's worth. All right. Let me look at some of my notes here. Now, when the Chiefs have the ball on offense, let's talk a little about the offense here. I'm not going to spend as much time on here just because I do want to say that Patrick Mahomes has been incredibly efficient in these playoffs. There was a number I saw. I couldn't believe this. Mahomes has 0 turnover-worthy plays in the playoffs. He has taken care of the ball. He's only taken 2 sacks in these 3 games. obviously thrown no interceptions, no fumbles, and none of his passes have been what PFF would call turnover-worthy plays. He has been perfect. He throws the ball away when he needs to. He's done exactly what he needs to do in order to win these games. In every single game against the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Ravens, 3 of the 4 best teams in the league. The other team was the Chiefs, obviously. I'm talking about the AFC. Against each of these teams, Patrick Mahomes played a slightly different game in each one. And he was excellent to near perfect at executing the game plan. Now, what are the Chiefs going to need to do to attack the 49ers? Now, the 49ers in these playoffs have been incredibly poor against the run. Now, for the season, they were actually fairly decent against the run. But, again, a smaller sample size here in the playoffs, they've been really, really bad. Now, how are the Chiefs going to attack that? The way you attack it is by running on the edge. So I'm going to throw some numbers out here. I'm going to read some of these things that I wrote down. And so, again, let's just get through some of the numbers here, and then we'll talk about them. So when you look at the runs between the left guard and the right guard, okay, which you got your left guard, you got your center, and you got your right guard, okay? The 49ers, when opposing teams run straight up the middle, essentially, they're 14th in the league in EPA per attempt. So they're in the top half of the league. Their success rate is number 22nd, not the greatest, but their yards per carry is number 4. They're 4th in the league in yards per carry at 3.8. So they do a good job of bottling up defenders inside when they're playing the inside. A lot of that comes from Fred Warner, from Warner and Greenlaw. The fantastic linebackers are able to get in and make tackles on running backs. Now, when you look at perimeter runs, when they're facing an offense that has 11 personnel, which is one running back, one tight end, 3 receivers, their success rate, again, it goes from 22 to 27. So their success rate's not great either one. But now their yards per attempt, they goes down to 17th in the league at 4.4 yards per carry. And their EPA goes from 14th to 26th. I'm sorry, I got these numbers. I got these wrong. The numbers I said, the first numbers were in the first 3 quarters of the game. Okay, so the numbers I just read there are when, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes here wrong. Runs to the edge of the line, either behind either tackles or outside the tackles. That's what they allowed. But when you look at the full season, when you break it down just to 11 personnel, it's as opposed to with a specific offense that the Chiefs would run, then the 49ers defense becomes one of the worst in the league against the run. Now all of a sudden they're worst in the league in EPA per attempt at 0.15. Their success rate is now 48%, which is 29th in the league. And yards per carry goes up a full yard from 17th down to at 4.4 to now 5.4 yards per carry. So what does that mean? What that means is that when the Chiefs have what looks like a passing situation where they've got 3 receivers out there, 1 tight end, 1 running back, the defense that the 49ers typically will employ is probably more of a nickel look, maybe a 3-3-5, maybe a 4-2-5. How do you defend against that? Because you're more than likely thinking they're going to pass the ball. That's when the Chiefs need to run, and that's when they need to run on the perimeter, because the numbers here would show that the 49ers, they don't have the right personnel to stop those edge runs. Now, the Chiefs haven't run the ball on the perimeter outside the tackles very much this year. They're much more of an inside the tackle zone blocking run team. Now, the Chiefs, however, in the playoffs, have done the exact opposite of what you do on how they've done this, how they've chosen to run and where they run. In early down situations, during the regular season, the Chiefs only ran 35% of those runs out on the perimeter. But in the playoffs, the Chiefs have elevated it way higher They've been running on the perimeter a lot more. They're at 51% for perimeter runs on early downs compared to 35%. This is and they've been incredibly successful too. They're .02 EPA per attempt, which is seventh in the league. That's during the regular season, which a 42% success rate, which is 10th, and yards per attempt, number one in the league, 5.6 yards per attempt. But they only ran 77 of those in the regular season, which was fewest in the NFL. Again, sample size matters here. I get it, but when you look at those perimeter runs in the 3 playoff games so far, again, if it's adjusted out for the season, they'd be number 5 in the league, right at almost a standard EPA per attempt at 0.1, 40% success rate, and 5.1 yards per carry, would be number 4th. So this is a situation where the Chiefs, whereas something they haven't done a whole lot, run to the outside, but they need to run to the outside in order to set up play action passes later on. And they need to run to the outside when they have this 11 personnel on the field, because they're going to get San Francisco in sub packages that are not going to be advantageous to stopping the run. We saw it all playoffs so far against the Lions and against the Packers, where the 49ers were constantly out of position. And speaking of out of position, you look at guys like here. Let me switch back over here to this screen here. When you constantly look at guys being out of position, there's a lot of talk about how Nick Bosa is going to just wreak havoc on this game. I don't. Nicky Bosa is incredibly overrated in my opinion, and now him going up against the left tackle, not Donovan Smith, he's the right tackle. The other guy, I forget his name. The guy who gets called for all the Taylor, Jawan Taylor. Taylor has struggled this year at times. Now, where Taylor has struggled with is being called for false starts and holding, and he leads the league in both of those categories. Now, in the Super Bowl, especially with Bill Vinovich as the crew chief, they call fewer offensive holdings than any other crew, and especially in the playoffs. The Chiefs they've just not been called for offensive holding in the playoffs. The NFL, I think it is, people talk about a script, they talk about favoring the Chiefs or whatever. It is what it is. They call fewer penalties in the postseason because they want the product to look good for television. Okay? It is what it is. And that does favor the Chiefs. So, I don't know. We'll see about how that does. I didn't mean to start talking about Nicky Bosa there because I really don't have a ton of things to talk about when it comes to Bosa. There was one other. Oh, I do want to talk about this real quick about the Chiefs' offense and 49ers defense. The 49ers defense, they've produced in their, when you look at their overall defense, not talking about certain specific, sub packages or personnel packages, I'm just talking about their total defense. Their success rate in these two playoff games was at 53.6% against the Packers and Lions. If you put that into context, that same percentage would be the worst defense in the NFL. Now, again, sample size is important. We have to take into account that their defense played better throughout the regular season than they have in these playoff teams against these playoff teams. Now, the Lions and the Packers both have had pretty good offenses. Well, the Chiefs have the best quarterback in the league, and maybe the best quarterback of all time. I'm not going to get into the GOAT conversation. Best quarterback versus greatest quarterback accomplishments, they're two different things. So that's a whole other topic for another day. But the 49ers have not been playing well. And they've gotten down in both of those games, and it's taken near miracles for them to come back and win these games. So what is it that you would have to believe that the 49ers are suddenly going to turn it around and suddenly going to be able to, on defense, they're going to be able to solve the code, and they're going to find some magic against the best quarterback we've ever seen, against an offense that is playing incredibly efficient in these playoffs. Now, again, I'll give you the fact that the Chiefs' offense has not been fantastic this year compared to years past. But compared to the league this year, the Chiefs have still been a top 12 offense. And that's where people are kind of losing the plot when it comes to the Chiefs this year. Offense is down over 6 points a game across the league this year. For whatever reason. Part of that reason is teams are not taking as many chances. And the way they're not taking as many chances, so they have fewer drives. They're not big plays are not as big of a thing in 2023 as they were even last year. It's not uncommon for a team to have 7 or 8 drives in a football game, and that's it. And if you're only going to get the ball 8 times, 27 points, that's almost like scoring 40 2 years ago. So it's all about limiting what your opponent does and being incredibly efficient. And the thing is that the Chiefs have been, that's exactly who the Chiefs have been so far in this playoff run. If we take EPA into, expected, their EPA per drive in their 3 postseason games, the Chiefs' offense becomes the 3rd best offense in the league based on what they've done in the playoffs. If you were to average that out into a 17-game season, would that play with the number 1 defense and the number 3 offense with the best quarterback? Yeah, I would take that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Now, the rest of this here, and I'm going to switch back over just to the larger camera here. So I didn't really have a ton to show on the screen there. I apologize. Mostly just static ESPN page while you're hearing me ramble. Maybe one of these days I'll do better about providing some graphics and numbers and put things up on the screen. And I just don't know how to do that right now. I'm not that good at being a YouTuber, I guess. Let's just talk about just feelings and guts and what my gut feeling is on this game. Like I said last week, when I made my confession that while I picked the Chiefs to beat the Ravens, deep down I kind of thought they would lose. There's a lot of talk around this game. Where the 49ers whining about a lot of things. For their practice field condition. They're whining about holding penalties from the 2019 Super Bowl. I mean, come on. That was 4 years ago, guys. The consensus has been, especially at the start of this week, was that the 49ers were talking a lot, they were chirping a lot. Brock Purdy he had a couple slights against Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce and Charvarius Ward, who won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs and had an interception in that game. Charvarius Ward had a slight against the Chiefs as well. When he was asked what the difference was between playing for the Chiefs and 49ers, and he said, "Oh, it's better here." You know how you answer that question? You say, "I was incredibly, fortunate to play for the Chiefs, and we won a Super Bowl, but I love where I am now, and I really believe in this team, and I believe in this team to win a Super Bowl here this year." That's how you answer that question. Okay? It needs to go to the Nick LaLoosh schedule or school of how to use sports cliches. Because one thing that Andy Reid does is that he preaches, do not put bulletin board material out there. Him and even Clark Hunt, who's not around that much. He's an owner in the background. But Clark Hunt preaches professionalism too. And from him to Brett Veach to Andy Reid, it's all about professionalism with these guys. And so all these people out there booing the Chiefs and booing Andy Reid and booing Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, I don't get it. Yeah, I understand the Chiefs have become the new villain. But why? Why do people hate the Chiefs so much? Sometimes a dynasty is good for a sport. I understood when people didn't like the Patriots. There was some cheating things going on there. The whole Deflate Gate, the Spy Gate, stuff like that. The Chiefs aren't doing anything like that. The Chiefs are just going out there and winning. Yeah, and fans of losing teams are going to complain about the refs, and everyone complains about the refs. I've complained about the refs before. And even when I try to get on my high horse and rise above it, I still complain about the refs. We all do, okay? Everybody complains about the refs from time to time, and sometimes unfairly. And you have to take that into context. But when it comes down to it, the Chiefs have done nothing to draw the ire from anybody other than just win. Some people just don't like the exposure that they have, from being on, the State Farm commercials to Kelsey being on the Pfizer commercials. That's people make political statements about things like that. I'm like, look, these guys are professional athletes. They're going to use their image, to make money in advertising. That's what players do, and I'm not going to say that they can't do that. But again, I'm smart enough as an adult to also not take a professional athlete's word as to, oh, well, Travis Kelsey tells me I should go do this, so I better go do that because Travis Kelsey knows better. Or Patrick Mahomes tells me I should get this kind of car insurance. I better go get that kind of car insurance, which I do have State Farm insurance. But I had State Farm insurance my whole life before Patrick Mahomes was even born. So, I think, when was he born? Was he born in 96? 95? Something like that. I turned 16 in 95. Yeah, but I had State Farm insurance. I've always had State Farm insurance. So, it is what it is. Back when it was, the slogan was, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. I haven't heard that slogan in a long time. So, anyway. So, how do I see this game going? Obviously, at the very beginning of this video, I did say I have the Chiefs winning this game. And from a game flow standpoint, this game will go one of two ways. It's either going to be a really close game where I think the Chiefs will win, or it's going to be a game where the Chiefs run away with it and it becomes a laugher. And when I say a laugher, I'm talking about like 30-13, 34-10, something like that. I honestly see a path. If I squint hard enough, I see a path for the Chiefs actually to win a game like that. I don't see the 49ers winning a blowout. I do see the 49ers having an avenue to win a game 24-17, 24-20, something like that, where the Chiefs' offense just completely stagnates and Patrick Mahomes turns the ball over. They put the ball on the ground. They miss some field goals. That was not something I also didn't talk about was special teams in this game, which I don't think we need to talk about it. But at the end of the day, this is about Patrick Mahomes and his legacy. This isn't about just going out and winning another Super Bowl. This is about legacy. Some people already believe the Chiefs are a dynasty. I do, just because of their accomplishments in the AFC and getting to, and even if they lose this game, still getting to 4 Super Bowls in 5 years and winning 2 of them. I still think that cements you. They've been the best team in the NFL over the past 7 years. Now, losing this game, there would be some debate. But if they win this game and they've won their 3rd Super Bowl in 5 years, there's no debate. And then what that does is that puts them on a path to do something that no team in the NFL history has done, which would be win 3 in a row. And would honestly get 4 in 6 years, which would tie the Steelers for the greatest 6-year run of all time. In my opinion, it would be greater because they had 2 back-to-backs on bookends with 2 non-Super Bowl appearances in the middle. Winning 3 in a row would put them into the pantheon of possibly the greatest dynasty of all time. Now, you could say that the Patriots. I'm getting ahead of myself here, obviously, but I'm a fan. I can do that. I can look ahead because I'm not a member of the team. When you look at potential dynasty, and you compare it to other dynasties. I look at the Patriots as two different dynasties. I don't look at them as like one 20-year dynasty or 18-year dynasty. I look at them as two different dynasties. I look at the dynasty as the first 4 years, or I guess you could say 5 years, where they missed the playoffs in one of those years, by the way. And then they had the middle stretch where Tom Brady and them, but they still were winning division titles, and they made Super Bowls, but they lost them. They lost 3 Super Bowls during that time. I look at that as you could almost say that's a third dynasty. That middle dynasty was one where they didn't win a Super Bowl, but then they have the back end where they won 3 more Super Bowls when they really had to rely on their defense to win those games. And of course, then Brady wins a 7th, which that's not the Patriots. But if the Chiefs win this game and they're firmly entrenched as a dynasty, I think that I think they would elevate them probably to the 3rd of all time. I'd have to really go back and do some studying on the dynasties, but I think that I would still put them behind the first Patriots dynasty, and I would put them behind the Steelers of the 70s. But I'd put them ahead of everybody else. I'd put them ahead of the Packers. I'd put them ahead of the Cowboys, the 49ers of the 80s. So I'd put them. And there was one I saw that the Raiders were a dynasty from like 69 to 84. And I'm like, 15-year period, but they only had 1 or 2 Super Bowls. They didn't even have 3. So I thought that was an interesting thing that I saw. So again, I'm at an hour and 11 minutes in this video now. Good grief! So I've rambled on and on and on, and I've only got to like a portion of what I wanted to talk about. I went through a lot of numbers. So I do see the Chiefs winning this game, and like I said, from a flow standpoint, I think that the Chiefs are going to win this. I think the Chiefs are going to come out, and I think they're going to establish, just like they have in their 3 previous playoff games, they're going to establish themselves firmly, with a lead, 7-0, 10-0, 14-3, 14-7. I think they're going to go up, and they're going to be able to hold the 49ers at arm's length. I see that the Chiefs having like a 7 to 10 point lead at halftime. And then as the 49ers get a little desperate in the second half, Brock Purdy starts turning the ball over. I see Purdy throwing 2 interceptions in this game. And I have the Chiefs winning this game. I think the Chiefs, I think the 49ers defense has been gashed on the ground, and Mahomes is playing at a level that is unparalleled. He's already the greatest we've seen of all time, in my opinion, but I think that Mahomes is going to come out and show the world that despite in a quote-unquote down year for the Chiefs are still the best team in the NFL, and he's the best quarterback, and Andy Reid's the best coach. And I do have the Chiefs going over 30 points for just the 4th time this year. I think the Chiefs, I think they're incredibly efficient on offense throughout the game. I see them scoring on 6 drives. I see them probably getting 8 or 9 possessions and scoring on 6 of them. I'm going to have them scoring, just because of the history of what we've seen. I'm going to give them 3 touchdowns and 3 field goals. So we're going to go Chiefs 30, 49ers 17. I think that the 49ers are going to be down 30 to 10, something like that. I think they get a later touchdown to make it look a little closer. But I think the Chiefs are up by 2 to 3 scores for the majority of the second half. And now a lot of people are picking a much closer game. I just don't see it. I see with the 49ers and their inability to stop these exotic blitzes. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo, this is one thing I forgot to bring up earlier, but I'll bring it up now. The Chiefs had 21 blitzes of Lamar Jackson in that game against the Ravens. All 21 blitzes were different. All 21 of them were. Now, the 49ers are so good against, and Brock Purdy's good against blitzes because most defenses don't vary up their blitz packages that much. Spagnuolo stopped the greatest quarterback of all time, at least the GOAT, from the most accomplished quarterback of all time, and Tom Brady, and maybe one of the best quarterback seasons of all time in 2007 with the greatest wide receiver, one of the greatest wide receivers we've ever seen, Randy Moss. And he was able to make Brady look average. Steve Spagnuolo did that twice to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. You think he can't do it to Brock Purdy? Mr. Irrelevant, last round pick. Look, pedigree matters. Brock Purdy was not great in college. Brock Purdy is successful because of Mike Shanahan's system. Now, he's played great. Not going to take that away from him. He's played great this year. But Jimmy Garoppolo looked really good in Mike Shanahan's system as well. Or Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan. Sorry, that's his dad. If I've said Mike Shanahan throughout this video, I apologize. I mean Kyle Shanahan. Goodness gracious. So, again, I have the Chiefs winning this game 30-17, and Kansas City getting their third Super Bowl title of the Patrick Mahomes era, their fourth title overall, which really puts them towards the top of best NFL franchises of all time. And I just have to keep pinching myself that this is where I am. So, but win, lose, or draw, well, it'll be win or lose. There's no draws in the Super Bowl. Win or lose, I will be back here next week offering my reaction to Super Bowl 58, all the pros, the cons, and if the Chiefs end up losing this game, I'll be right here and we'll break it down. And we'll talk about where things went wrong. We'll talk about where my predictions went wrong. I'm not going to run away from it. Matter of fact, the only viral video I have on my YouTube history was the reaction to the Chiefs losing to the Buccaneers, which I did not see coming, but I probably should have in hindsight because the offensive line was absolutely ravaged in that game. But the Chiefs are mostly healthy in this game, and so are the 49ers, so both teams are going to be fairly even strength. Again, the Chiefs have a couple players out, but they have really good guys they were able to rotate in. It's not a situation like it was back in 2021. So anyway, that's my pick, guys. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down, but still leave a comment and tell me why you didn't like it. It helps support that algorithm, so thank you very much. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a great one. Go Chiefs.